Why you had to hide away for so long? Where did we go wrong?
The offensive coordinator, you got a busted play.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the League of Extraordinary Gentlemen Nightly News. I'm your host, Anthony Catania. On tonight's show, we welcome two league members here to share their harrowing first-hand account of last season. We'll have a rapid-fire question and answer section with two distinguished league experts. And, of course, we'll check in with our award-winning field correspondent, Seth Polachek. But first tonight, our top breaking news story. The reign of Ganane has ended.
Come on, guys. It's too easy. I barely even made it into the playoffs.
You know what? I told her so. I told her so.
Joining me tonight are Jamie Peters and John McElroy, 2016's last place finishers. They are here tonight to discuss the fall of Ganane. Welcome, gentlemen.
Thanks for having me.
Anthony.
Grant looked poised to win it all last year again. He finished the regular season with an 11-2 record and charged into the playoffs as the number one seed. After commanding first-round victory over Joe Jaffrey's squad, Dax out for Harambe, Grant narrowly beat Steve Salyer and Mona Lisa Vito by 8 points and found himself face-to-face with the 7th-seeded artificial Feral Falcons. In the end, the Feral Falcons prevailed, winning 153-143 in the championship matchup. Did either of you have any faith that Jason was going to be able to pull off the victory and end the reign of Ganane? John?
Not at all. No.
Jamie?
Absolutely. And I'll tell you why. Like with all great reigns of terror, whether it be Hitler, Stalin, Saddam Hussein, or his younger brother, Barack Hussein Obamacare, all reigns of terror have to come to an end. You could say Jason was our SEAL Team 6.
Okay. Both of your teams missed the playoffs last season. How did it feel watching from the sidelines, knowing you were powerless to do anything? John?
Terrible.
Hurt pretty bad?
Yeah, it sucked.
You lose some sleep?
Nope.
No. Jamie?
Don't remember. I did not stop drinking for a long, long time.
Does Ganane fight fair, or would you say his relationship with Jay Feely has in some way corrupted him?
I'm going to interrupt right here. I do not appreciate you dragging Jay Feely's name through
the
the mud like you're doing right now. He's a great man, a representative of the NFL and of our country. I wish you'd leave him alone. I'm going to wait for the next question.
Didn't know you had that strong of feelings about Jay Feely.
My nutsack.
John?
Well, I feel like Jay, while a little bit dirty in the weekly pickups, he did follow the league rules. He stayed within the parameters of the league rules, so I can't fault him on that.
Fair. If you had to choose one member of the league other than Grant who you consider your biggest rival, who would it be? Jamie?
Probably Jaffrey. I don't know him. I've never met him, so him, I guess. All right.
Fair. John?
I'd have to say your team, Anthony.
Oh, interesting. Mm-hmm. And why is that?
Well, a couple years ago, I beat you by only a point to get into the playoffs. And I feel like throughout the years, our teams have always been pretty evenly matched. So I've kind of held the standard of my team. Cheers.
I had forgot about that 1-point victory almost. Thanks for bringing it up.
Yep.
What would you have done differently last season if you could go back in time, John?
Last season, I would definitely not get as hammered at for the draft.
Sure. You had downed a few.
Yeah, I had.
Jamie?
Well, 2 years ago, I drafted Andrew Luck, and it was a bit of a disaster with his team's poor play and his injuries. Did the same thing last year, the same results. So I guess to make last year a little better, I think I draft Andrew Luck.
Well, good luck with that. Now that there isn't the immense pressure of ending a Ghanaian dynasty, how are you going to approach this year's draft and managing your team, John?
Well, I think this year I'm going to only draft just superstar players. In the years previous, I think I tried to have a kind of a balanced, force on my team, and this year I think I'm just going to go for the star players.
Jamie, how are you going to manage your team?
Blood sacrifice.
Blood sacrifice. I know last season was traumatic for both of you. I really appreciate you guys being here today with me to share your stories.
Thank you, Anthony.
I had literally nowhere else to be.
Yeah.
Well, it's 5 minutes after the hour, and you know what that means. It's time to check in with our award-winning field correspondent, Seth Polachek. How you doing, Seth?
Do we have a feed? What's going on? What's going on? Can we get him hooked up?
Oh, hello, Anthony. The draft is approaching faster than any of us realize, and I'm here to make sure everyone is ready to pick their players. Quarterbacks are a crucial part of any fantasy team, and even more so in the League of Extraordinary Gentlemen. Let's take a look at the top 5 quarterbacks going into the 2017 fantasy football season.
Top 5 quarterbacks.
Coming in at number 5, Andrew Luck. Despite struggling with injuries the last few seasons, Luck looks poised to have a solid 2017 campaign.
Even with the injury troubles last year, Luck still finished top 5 in fantasy points among all quarterbacks. With weapons like T.Y. Hilton, Dante Moncrief, and Frank the Tank Gore, there is no shortage of talent on this Colts roster.
The Colts say he will be ready to go when their season kicks off against the Los Angeles Rams on September 10th. At number 4, we have Atlanta Falcons quarterback Matt Ryan.
After an excellent 2016 regular season and a trip to the Super Bowl, Ryan is ready to redeem himself following the shocking loss last year to the New England Patriots. Julio Jones doesn't show any signs of slowing down, and the Falcons boast arguably the best backfield in football with Tevin Coleman and Devontae Freeman.
I expect Ryan to be a top-tier starter and a valuable asset to any fantasy roster this year. Number 3, Tom Brady.
Brady's 4-game suspension last season had a barely noticeable effect on his fantasy value. He finished the season with 28 touchdowns in 12 games and totaled the second most passing yards among all quarterbacks. Rob Gronkowski is back and ready to go for the season opener, and the addition of wide receiver Brandon Cooks will make an already talented stable of receivers even more potent.
Can the Pats cement their dynasty and win back-to-back Super Bowls? Who really cares as long as he's putting up numbers for your fantasy team? Am I right? Number 2, Drew Brees.
The NFC South is full of excellent quarterback talent, yet Brees still consistently outpaces Cam Newton, Matt Ryan, and Jameis Winston in terms of pure passing ability and, more importantly, fantasy production. Brandon Cooks is catching touchdowns for the Patriots this year, but Michael Thomas, Willie Snead, and Coby Fleener are ready to compete to be Brees' new favorite target. Brees is the second oldest starting quarterback in the league, but you would never guess that by looking at his stats.
All signs point to Brees once again being an ideal starting quarterback for your fantasy team. Topping the list this year is King in the North, Green Bay Packers quarterback Aaron Rodgers.
The best thing about Rodgers is he's good at everything. Whether it's a steady string of 15-yard completions, a heart-pumping touchdown scramble from the 10-yard line, or a 65-yard Hail Mary in the closing seconds of a game, Rodgers consistently produces fantasy points in every way possible. Rodgers boasts years of experience and success with Jordy Nelson and Randall Cobb, and may have finally found a steady tight end target in former Patriot Martellus Bennett.
Rodgers has been sleeping soundly all offseason with dreams of Super Bowl 45 dancing in his head. Barring major injuries, 2017 should yield another productive fantasy season for Rodgers. Now back to you, Anthony.
Thanks, Seth. Very informative. Joining me now are two guests chomping at the bit to answer some rapid-fire questions about the League of Extraordinary Gentlemen. Joining me are Gregor Langebhn and Steven Salyer. What's up, boys?
It's good to be here, Commish.
Let's get this over with.
Okay, so your biggest takeaways from last season. Gregor?
You've got to build yourself a championship team, not just a divisional championship team.
We've all been there.
Yeah, not him.
Steve?
Yeah, I've never won the divisional championship. I've made a lot of mistakes. I think I'm overvaluing some positions, and I'm really missing out on the running backs. I didn't have that core, that solid foundation to my team last year.
Steve, where did it all go wrong last season for you?
Well, it might have paid off had my gamble on quarterbacks been a hit. I really went heavy with it. I thought if I really struck gold with my quarterbacks, that maybe my running backs could maybe just kind of fill in some gaps. Didn't work out that way. Cam Newton was atrocious. Drew Brees did great, but he can only do so much. Cam really just let me down.
How about you, Gregor? Where did it go wrong?
I had a great year, honestly. But then I had to play Jason week 1 of the playoffs. And he was streaking, and I was petering out.
Sounds gross.
Your thoughts on free agent pickups. Should there be a gentleman's agreement to at least wait until 7 o'clock a.m.? I'm looking at you, Steve.
I am an extraordinary gentleman, and I get up when that thing hits 4:30.
Yeah.
I'm there, and I've got my drafts, not my drafts, but my picks ready to go. And if that time changed, I would be ready to go when it hits.
If I get beat by Steve because he wakes up at 4:30 and picks better players off the waiver than me, then so be it. But at least I'll know I'm not that pathetic.
Place kickers. An integral part of football or dispensable in terms of fantasy football? Gregor?
This is where my blood really boils. If you take the kicker out of football or fantasy football, you might as well change the goddamn name to handball or flimsy whimsy wumsy. I don't care. It's got to have kickers.
Flimsy whimsy wumsy.
Yeah, do it.
Scientific.
Would look good on a jersey, that's for sure. Steve, thoughts on kickers?
I agree with you. We shouldn't take kickers out of football, but we should take them out of fantasy play.
Okay. Sure.
I think there's a lot of positions in fantasy play that are irrelevant, and we don't use them for a reason. I think kicking value is too random. The numbers don't justify using them or putting any value on them. Some of the best kickers in the league last year were unchosen the entire year. They just sat on the waiver the entire time. So I don't believe that anybody's really truly putting any true value in them or watching them or caring. I think they're just having kickers for kicking's sake.
If you don't want to be so random, just pick a dome kicker.
A dome kicker.
A
dome kicker.
I did pick a dome kicker. He's Matt Bryant, and he was number 1 last year.
Wait, you're complaining about having kickers being too random, Mr. Number 1 kicker.
But basically, when it comes to kickers, it's either you have Justin Tucker or you don't.
Well, that's not even true. It's still random. Take Gostkowski or Hauschka. I believe John drafted Hauschka in a kind of early round for kickers, but did that pay off? No. Did Gostkowski pay off last year for anyone? No.
It's fair. It's fair.
Just pick Vinatieri every single year like I do.
You guys know who had Justin Tucker last year?
Jason.
League champion, Jason Green. Okay, fellas, give me a bold prediction for next season. Gregor, go.
Ben Roethlisberger was just driving on his Harley, and all of a sudden Cam Newton's just going to, bam, sideswipe him, kill him, and then Cam Newton will be in jail.
So, vehicular manslaughter.
Yep, exactly, and Graham Gano will take over as quarterback.
Graham Gano.
He's the greatest guy I know.
Graham Gano. Steve?
No.
Got any bold predictions for us?
Yes, I believe that both Jay Cutler and Tony Romo would be back in the league.
Oh, stop the presses. They're going to leave their broadcasting gigs and come back to the league?
Yeah, I think there's going to be so many injuries that somebody's going to call them up.
Who would want to do this as a living?
Fair. So, if you had a team and your quarterback went down, who would you rather have, Romo or Cutler?
Romo.
Romo.
Most underrated quarterback of all time.
Bold indeed. Thank you, fellas. I appreciate you guys joining me today.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Now we go back to our multi-Emmy winning field reporter, Seth Polachek. What's happening, Seth?
Thanks, Anthony. In the League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, a good quarterback is the cornerstone of a solid fantasy team, but more often than not, championships are won by teams with the best skill position players. Here are my rankings of the top 5 skill position players available in this year's draft.
Top 5 skill position dudes.
Number 5, Rob Gronkowski. I don't know about you, but I have been in serious need of a good Gronk spike for quite some time now.
Gronkowski may have missed 7 games last year, but there's no reason to think that he still isn't Tom Brady's favorite target on the team. Martellus Bennett has moved on to Green Bay, making Gronk, in terms of usage, the undisputed number 1 tight end on the Patriots roster. He's healed from his back injury, he's still tall, still strong, and still has great catching and route running abilities.
Gronkowski is undoubtedly the ideal tight end choice when it comes to fantasy football production. Number 4, Odell Beckham Jr.
Sure, Eli Manning is the interception champion, but when he gets the ball anywhere within 10 feet of Beckham, it's usually a completion. Last year, Beckham worried fantasy owners after a slow start to the season, but by the time Week 6 rolled around, the magical Odell we've all come to expect was clearly back to his good old self. The addition of Brandon Marshall and the emergence of Sterling Shepard will only hamper his numbers a small amount.
Beckham should once again be the number 1 receiver for the New York Giants and fantasy teams alike. Number 3, Antonio Brown. I think it's pretty safe to say that Antonio Brown is the greatest NFL offensive player to ever come out of Central Michigan University.
Every team in the league had a chance to snag him in the 2010 draft, and after 6 rounds and 194 selections, the Pittsburgh Steelers decided to give him a chance. Brown's ability to score points in every way possible has made him one of the most formidable weapons in the NFL. 80-yard punt returns for touchdowns? Check. Backfield receptions turned into 60-yard scores? Check. The ability to rack up double-digit receptions without breaking a sweat? Check.
If you're on the clock and number 84 is sitting there waiting to be drafted, you'd be hard-pressed to find a wide receiver as durable and reliable as Antonio Brown. Number 2, David Johnson.
In the blink of an eye, David Johnson seemed to go from David who to one of the best offensive players in the NFL. But the journey definitely wasn't in a blink of an eye for Johnson. He put in hours, outworked most of his peers, and proven himself to be one of the most humble, efficient, and dependable running backs in the league. Flashy plays and wacky hairdos aren't his style. Johnson is laser focused on more important things like 100-yard rushing games, yards after the catch, and of course touchdowns. The Cardinals have a multitude of talented players on the offensive side of the ball, but Johnson stands out among them as the best skill position player in Arizona and possibly all of fantasy football.
And number 1 on my list of skill position players, Le'Veon Bell.
Bell recently told reporters that he believes he should be making considerably more money than he's making now because he easily equals the production of both a number 1 running back and a number 2 receiver. And honestly, the man has a point. Despite missing the first 3 games of last season due to suspension, Bell still leads the Steelers in rushing yards while also racking up the 2nd most receiving yards on the team. With a healthy Ben Roethlisberger and plenty of explosive teammates to draw the attention of opposing defenses, Bell will be as productive as ever and definitely a top 5 overall pick in the majority of fantasy leagues this season.
That wraps it up. Back to you, Anthony.
A note to follow.
You son of a bitch.
We'll do it live. It.
Well, Beefcake, what planet are you from again?
Well, I'm from the planet Cholesterol.
Finish him.